Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Net Check Investigations podcast. Information is really where power sits, right, Jonathan? I mean,
Yes,
this is
I
where
believe so.
we've got to get knowledge transfer to take place. So this podcast is really about the 9 special questions that employers must ask job candidates. And with these special questions, it's really to really get trust and the information that you need in order to get the trust, right? I mean, you want the employer needs to hire the candidate, and they almost need to get themselves out of the way and just stay on the questions and allow trust and truth to come towards them, right? I mean, isn't that a big part of it? Is you got to have trust and you got to have truth.
Right. So a lot of employers go through a checklist like where can you work? What hours can you work? Do you have transportation? What's your education? That's all preliminary, superficial stuff that if an employer agrees that there's a possibility, they can work, they are eligible, you've only cracked the shell. You haven't gotten inside the person's head and you don't know how they're thinking, how they're functioning, what's important to them. And as an employer, you can better manage and allocate resources when you understand the content. So we're trying to get inside the content, not just the superficial stuff.
As well as save time. I mean, who wants to hire somebody and then have to rehire the same person in 3 or 6 months during the probation period? We're thinking, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff disclosed, in the field of time. And I think, Jonathan, I mean, this is really kind of a left brain, logical, analytical, safekeeping function. And that's why these 9 questions are really helpful here, because really our time is so valuable to us. And if we don't get truth early, we're trying to catch up with truth later. And our intuition is great, but it's only like one half of it. we got to get the information that we need. And this is why this first question around how many job candidates lie is so valuable. So maybe you could take us through this. I mean, here's, these are things that you've experienced in your research.
Well, as an investigative firm, we're doing this for other agencies, for employers, for people who are renting property, for people who are hiring caregivers for their children or their elderly. And we just internally know that just because you look at someone's record is not going to tell you much more than whatever is in the public record.
Right.
And probably more than half of all crimes are not reported at all. Possibly half of those that are reported aren't prosecuted at all. So you really got to ask a few questions to find out what's going on in someone's head. So the first alarming statistic that we're aware of is that somewhere between half and 85% of those who present resumes have lied on their resume. So the assumption has to be going in that if you have someone that intends to deceive an employer or an apartment owner or somebody, if they're intending to deceive, then what kind of credibility or trust would be created if you catch them in their deception?
Right.
Are you still going to hire somebody who is not representing the truth? How are they going to be regarding money or treating other people?
So the word lie is really significant here because there's a difference. There's a lie. There's a scale between the color black and the color white, right? So there's this near truth. There's this partial truth. Mm-hmm. Yes, I did work for that company once. Yes, I did do this presentation for this company once. So it is a truth, but it might not be a full truth, and it goes into this lie category. So they're not going to really disclose things because they're interested in meeting their needs to start over again, to get past their criminal record maybe, mm-hmm. to get a financial income, to move beyond the mistakes of the past. So, yeah, I mean, we both get it. People have got to try to live their lives. At the same time is that, well, if it's a risky piece of the equation, we may want to ask some questions to really help about that. And like you were saying with the 15% lie about their criminal past, sure, sure they do, and tell us a little bit about, how some states work on this so that we can kind of tether this one out.
Yeah, that's great. So as an investigations agency, we're often asked to do a criminal background check, and we have to get a release in writing. Of the hundreds of thousands of people that we've assessed and analyzed, about 15%, about 1 in 8, 1 in 7, check the box, I do not have any criminal record, I've never been convicted. And we find that they have been. And not only have they been, but it may not be that long ago, like a year ago.
Wow.
And the reason, and we sometimes call them and say, you checked no, but we found a criminal record. Are you disputing it? Would you like to, is it a mistake? They go, no, I didn't think that anyone actually checked. I've been hired by 5 companies and nobody ever checks my record.
Wow.
Or they do a quick background check in 5 minutes and they don't find it. I'm surprised you found it. And I go, well, yeah, all we have to do is look. There it is.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
There is the expectation that you can lie and not get caught.
Wow.
And that seems to be pretty prevalent, unfortunately.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? I mean, employees count for 60 to 70% of thefts and the company loss. I would never, I guess somewhere along the line from the hiring point, in order to the point where the employees are stealing things or embezzling things or misappropriating things, somewhere in the employee's mind, there's either a fairness or a justice or a lack that's coming in. And you almost want to get in front of that during the interview process, right? I mean,
right. Well,
you have some evidence about that.
I want to go back into what states or why some states don't want you to ask about conviction.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ask that. Yeah.
So California, for example, doesn't want you to ask them if they were convicted because they don't want to discriminate against someone who is untrustworthy or who commits crime. They want to give them an equal chance, even though they've had a bad criminal past or a disreputable past, to ignore it, which really is insane. If someone has a substantial criminal record and they're not learning and they're not improving, that would be relevant to someone's safety. But some states don't want you to ask. So what we say instead is there anything in your criminal or civil record that we need to know about that's relevant to trusting you and relevant to your conduct?
Wow.
That's a way to get around it. Now, even if they don't tell you, if you do a thorough criminal search or misconduct search, you're going to find it anyway.
Right.
But you're trying to assess their openness. Now, if somebody says, yes, I had a DUI 15 years ago, and I had another traffic ticket 10 years ago for speeding, and they're not in a driving situation, that probably doesn't matter very much. However, if they're a truck driver or a driver, and they had a DUI 2 years ago, and then they didn't go to their classes last year, it's very relevant. So it kind of depends. So moving on to the next question that you had is 60 to 70% of employees account for theft and company loss.
Wow.
It's more important to watch the folks who handle your cash registers, your inventory, your accounting books, your credit card information about your clients, or the bank information of your elderly, or even property of your children. It's more likely that theft or loss will occur from inside than outside. And unfortunately, there's more internal theft and loss through bank tellers stealing money than there is for bank robbery. So by asking the right questions, you're going to kind of maybe reach that wall between what they're thinking and what they represent, which are usually not the same.
I see. So there's in those environments, it's really, you want to get ahead of it through the inquiry and the question asking beforehand, so you can kind of get a sense of where they might be, in relationship to these things.
Exactly.
I see. So when you say the sentence, employers are rarely able to, prosecute for employee clients. Tell us a little bit about that. What happens there? It's like you figure that an employer, if somebody is doing a crime in-house, what's going on there? It's almost like the criminal needs to be from the outside before the police will get involved. So tell us a little bit. That's weird.
Yeah. So as doing our investigations as a firm, a lot of work comes our way because we have to build a criminal case against an employee or former employee because the police won't do it.
Wow.
They say it's a civil matter. You hired that person. They stole money from you. You gave them the checking account number. It's your fault.
Wow.
You resolve it. We don't really care. If they steal a bicycle, we'll put them in jail for 5 years. But if they steal 100,000, that's on you. That's been predominantly the value of law enforcement that we see around the country. And I don't know why that is. To me, a person who's entrusted with special access has a higher duty and a higher responsibility than a stranger that just steals a bicycle. But generally, law enforcement is not interested in prosecuting an internal theft.
So white-collar crime versus blue-collar crime is the thing that showed up in my head, and I could be completely wrong about those two terms. But at the same time, it's like, well, I'd rather take or prosecute from this place outside, and rather than really, oh wow, that's so interesting. I never really thought about it that. So here it is with this white-collar internal theft is not stealing actual property. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so law enforcement and the laws as written are really geared towards property theft or hurting another person. So if I just steal $50,000 from you,
wow,
only money, there was no property, there was no physical tangible property, it's just money, which is a concept. So that doesn't really count. A lot of DAs also don't prosecute for that because they say it's your own internal issue. You hired them. They had a criminal background. You didn't know. It's your fault. You deal with it. It's not our problem. And even information is considered not property. Information like account information and clients and employees' names and phone numbers and socials and dates of birth, they're considering that as not actual property. We're finding this around the country. It's very disappointing.
Wow.
Don't give up, employers out there. Get some help, like an agency like ours, with a little work and a little good detective work. We can put it together for you, and we can get a prosecution.
Well, that's good to hear. Just to have your net check investigation approach to this will allow the employer to get the extra support that they need in order to really have a successful effort to recover something, possibly, correct?
We hope so. And the next issue is that some law enforcement agencies are reluctant because there's no person that is the victim. If it's a corporation, then nobody suffered.
Oh boy.
Because the corporation or the company has lots of money. What's the issue? We get that as an excuse on a regular basis, and you have to really push law enforcement and prosecution to say that it doesn't matter if the person is a corporation or a company or an owner, it's still a crime and must be prosecuted.
Wow. I mean, what a difference. I mean, it's I just even thinking about the different companies that I consult with, their awareness level is very low around this. It would be my guess, so boy, they can't get there. Even just looking at this next sentence, companies are not geared or to prepare cases. You're right. They are, completely out of that view set. So yeah,
there are some large companies that are very good at this. I don't want to say who they are, but they're very well known and they know what to do. They have entire staffs created and focused on these issues. Medium-sized companies and some large companies are not, they can't afford to have a whole staff and a legal team and an investigative team set aside to do this. So our agency and others are able and happy to do this.
I see.
Happy to support them.
So that's that next level of support. Yeah. So tell us a little about the company's hiding misconduct. I could see the PR value just by reading this, but tell us a little bit about a story or two about this one, because this one is really
we have a lot. There are times where we definitively and completely identify how the fraud or embezzlement or loss was committed, who did it, when they did it, how much they took, how did they take it, when did they take it. And the company will say, we don't really want to take this forward. We're going to dismiss the person without judging them, allow them to resign voluntarily, which means it never gets entered into the record. Nobody has any idea what happened, because our reputation and the trust of our clients will be eroded. So it's easier to accept the loss of $50 or $100 or $200,000 or even $1 million than to admit that they don't know what they're doing and they're not watching their money. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the PR value seems to, in many cases, outweigh the monetary loss. Hard to believe.
No, it's I can appreciate it, because if a company has a wrongdoing sitting there, and if I'm going to hire that company or company this one, and I don't hear any wrongdoing from this company, but I hear a wrongdoing over here, it's like those guys don't have their act together. These have their act together. Or these guys are better at concealing it than those ones are over there. So
that might be the case.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, yeah. And managers also can hide the misconduct too.
Right. So especially with nonprofits, we find this to be common. The board or the executive director of a nonprofit will determine or realize that there's been some internal theft or fraud, embezzlement, whatever, misallocation, and won't bring it up to others because it makes them look bad. And so when we're hired to do this, we have confidentiality. We don't disclose without permission to anybody what's going on. And unfortunately, our lips are sealed. And if the manager says, you know what, I now know what happened, thank you, I'll take care of it, we're on our way. We're, the records are here. We keep everything in case they change their mind. But
boy, this is really setting up the questions to ask. Now, all of a sudden, I'm thinking in my own head here is that you've got to ask, what was the reason you were let go of or what's the reason why you transitioned out of that job? Then calling that person and see if they're going to give you BS. Oh my gosh. Oh, they were a great employee. And you hear that little tone in their voice of, yeah, but not really. They're not.
Yeah. And employers are afraid to tell what really happened. But if it's true and they're not violating a person's individual privacy, it's fine. So I think employers need to help each other, especially when it comes to caregiving.
Probably one of the best sentences on this podcast right there. Employers need to help each other with hiring and the skill and the integrity between employees moving from position to position. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and especially with people and with money. And almost everyone's going to deal with people or money. And so employers, please help each other. That's my message.
Well, what if you fail to undertake a comprehensive misconduct search? I'm guessing there's a few things that you can run through, and if you'd be willing to read through these and throw a little bit of stuff in our direction, I think it'd be helpful.
Thank you. Very quickly, if there's 3 levels of checking someone out or pre-screening. The first one is you do a peripheral view. Are they qualified? Are they interested? Are they eligible? Can they work there?
Okay.
All that stuff. The second one is our interview that we're discussing today. And the third one is, even if with a good interview, you want to do a comprehensive misconduct search, because things in the record will help you. For example, if you don't do one and you don't ask the right questions, you might miss something, which is possible. You may put children or the elderly or coworkers at risk.
Right.
It can lead to an unsafe workplace.
Right.
You might be liable for not screening correctly.
Right.
In other words, you didn't look for things as a normal person would look. You might ignore the signs of unwanted character traits. For example,
Sure.
constant orders of protection against them, civil harassment, which is not criminal, it's civil.
Sure.
And you're finding all these things. You're going to increase the likelihood of a lawsuit. You're going to increase the likelihood of internal theft or embezzlement because you didn't look in the record to see what was reported and what was filed,
I
which
see.
makes a lot of sense.
It does. It does. It's a really good checklist to really start from. So these questions that are coming up here are for profiling or really investigating or poking a stick in a positive way on your company's for this a candidate or associate that's showing up. So talk to us a little bit about this profiling as a term.
Yeah, profiling assesses the mindset and view of a person. We're
I
not
see.
looking at their history, their public record history, or their employment history. We're trying to determine how do they think, or what is going on in their head. And so, especially as investigators, we do that with witnesses in criminal cases and civil cases when we interview people. But we also want to apply that skill to bring someone into our organization.
Right.
Go ahead.
That makes sense. So the information that's not located on the resume. So it's really just gathering the motivation, the representation, the conflict orientation, the pathology or predispositions. You're really just getting these key characteristics to move forward. It sounds like.
Right. And so before we're going to start question one in a moment. So, sorry it's taking so long. But we want to define some terms. So dominant motivation is what someone's really after. Someone might have recognition or wealth or
Right.
stability or lack of restriction or emotional contact with people. There is something that kind of holds all their activities together in one thread. The dominant motivation is very important because it tells you what their goal is and what they're trying to do. And everything they do is related to that, I would say. The second term is a dominant representation, meaning how do they pretend to be or how do they portray themselves? Do they say, I'm the greatest that ever was, I'm wonderful, I'm fantastic? Or do they say, I'm new, I'm learning, I'm open? What do they represent themselves to be? Do they say I'm a go-getter, I'm hard at work, or do they say I'm creative, I'm innovative? What is their representation? The third item, which is highly important, especially when you're around people, is their conflict orientation. When something's not going right, how do they approach it? What do
that makes sense.
They shoot you, or do they ask for help, or do they, what is their orientation towards conflict?
Wow, that's a good way.
Finally, we're looking at someone's pathology or predisposition, meaning do they love to sue everybody when they don't get their way? Because in the past they were treated unfairly. Were they abused as a child? Do they have some kind of remorse or regret or revenge going on that's a subtext to their activity?
Right.
And if you can find it, you can really present a better picture of what that person's profile is.
Okay. So these series of questions are going to kind of pull the covers back on this and pull the curtain back so we can see what's inside.
Right. There you go.
All right. Question number 1. Can you tell me what our firm does?
Right. So when you interview, you don't necessarily want to tell them what your firm does. You're not advertising or promoting how great you are and all the things you do. You want to find out their level of preparation and interest. Are they in front of you knowing anything about your organization? What is their thought process? It may reveal their actual motivation to interview.
Right.
One person might say, let's say it's a private security company, good example. What does your firm do? Oh, they do private security. Oh, great. Do you know anything about us or where we, just kind of take that a little bit further? Do you know? No, I don't know anything about you. No, I don't know where you, I don't know if you patrol. I don't know if you have alarms. I don't know anything about you. what that tells me is the person's mind is saying, I need a job. I just want to get a job. It's not about career. It's not about where. I just need money. So the dominant motivation is I need a job. I need money.
Right.
Well, that tells me there's not a lot of maturity or depth there, because that's very superficial. There's no reason that person will stay, because if they get $1 more, they'll go somewhere else. There's no interest in what the organization does.
Right, right. So a little bit of you're really actually testing to see if they've researched it and at least looked on your website, at least looked at, here's what I've done. And I'm just thinking in reflection, how many interviews in my youth that I went in, the interviewer was just telling me all about their company and what a great a place it is to work for. It's like, oh my gosh. Well,
that's their dominant representation. They're trying to tell you the way they hope you think they are.
Wow.
And unfortunately, when you tell them how you think they are, how they think they are, they're compensating for something. If you're great, you don't have to tell people. So everybody knows you're great. You don't have to remind people.
So amazing.
I have a light issue. There we go.
Question number 2. In what ways do you believe this firm is successful?
Right. Now, that's a loaded question. That's a great profiling question. They're going to say what they think success means to them.
I see.
They may not know what you think, and they can't possibly guess what they think your firm needs to be successful.
I like your logo. I like the way your ad sounded. It seems like that you've got a good reputation, whatever they say, but it's more revealing about them.
Correct. Exactly. So it exposes their understanding of the industry. It reveals what they believe the interview wants. It offers an opportunity for them to give data. For example, in an interview, somebody might say, you know what? I like the way that you've grown 10% every year for 5 years. I like the way you broke the $100 million mark. I like the way you have offices in 22 states. I really appreciate the innovation, the creativity, the online access. That tells you how they're thinking. Now, if someone says, I like the pay, you're near my house, the hours are convenient, that means it's about their convenience and their needs. It's not about the company needs.
Right.
I want to see where they're coming from. A lot of times after question 2, I stop asking questions, because if 1 and 2 don't work, I don't keep going. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it's like thank you. We'll let you know.
No, I don't say we'll let you know.
Oh, what is your sentence?
I'm not like we'll put you off till later. I say, you know what? I don't think this is a good match right now. In a year or 2, you may want to reapply. And I don't have to care. I don't want to carry on a lie that I don't want.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's correct. I don't think it's a match right now. Okay.
Right.
So question 3, let's see what we got here. Describe the experiences and education you possess related to the work with our firm. Okay. Describe.
So this is a softball answer. We're trying to say, please tell me why you can be here. And it may not be on the resume. So this gives them a chance to come up with ideas and information that is not apparent. Also, this is what we call a good BS detector.
Right.
BS means something that we wish not to state.
Yep.
If they show a lot of confidence and they have a lot of things and they're so great and wonderful and everything they've done in their life since they were born was for this job, and everything that they intend to do has been about coming here, that's probably not true. In fact, it's very contrived and their deception level is very high. And a lot of times they don't give me or they don't give our clients or employers the right answers.
Right.
They're just trying to overwhelm you with I'm great and I'm wonderful. How could you say no?
So authenticity is going to be lost. Truth is going to be lost in that overconfidence. And, maybe they're telling stories that are trying to create impact, but really are not really in alignment with truth. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right. And the opposite is true. Some people cannot tell you how they prepared yourselves. For example, a lot of our agents that we hire one day go into law enforcement or work for the county in the court system or probation.
Right.
We
Right.
know that we can't keep everybody for life, and we want them to move to the next level. And this is a good
Sure.
2 or 3 year training process to go there. And the common question that law enforcement will ask when they're interviewing you is, have you prepared yourself? Well, if you say I watch 911 on TV and I watch NCIS, that's not preparation. That's entertainment.
It is entertainment. Yeah.
That, do you shoot a gun? Do you run track? Do you lift weights? Do you take martial arts? Do you write reports? Do you work for a security firm? Do you work for a PI firm? Do you work for a law firm? What do you do that gives me an idea that you're committed to this? So too little information is as bad as too much.
I see. I see. Question 4, if hired, what do you expect to achieve 1 year from now?
And this is a little trap, a little profiling trap. We want to hear the first words out of their mouth, even if it's a joke. That's what they're thinking. The dominant motivation is what's behind them being in front of you, and what are they after, and how does that affect their life? So one example is we did a joint interview with a corporation where they're going to hire a chief executive officer.
Yeah.
The guy said, hey, well, really, my main, what I'm expecting is to have lunches and go drinking every lunch and not come back after 2:00. Well, anyway, and then he went on to what he thought was the right answer. But in reality, we called his previous employer, and what he did was he'd go to lunch at 11:00, go drinking and not come back. That's exactly what he did, and that's why he was there. And 1 year from now, he wanted to be able to do that at any time or every day. If it was a joke, it was exactly true.
Exactly true. So people's words are congruent with what they're thinking and what they're going to do. What a surprise, right? And I like it. They may allude to the pathology, and the pathology is this is how this person's soul is suffering. They're suffering. They're suffering with the bad behavior. They're connected to that bad behavior or that junky behavior, and they're gonna keep doing the habit of that bad behavior or that junky behavior at the company's expense. So.
Right. And it gives you a better idea of their mindset. If they say 1 year from now, I want your job, and then let's say the person's job is beyond their education or experiential range, are they going to get it in 1 year? That might be a little bit impossible. And that's the dominant representation. The representation is, I want something. The question is it achievable? And if it's not achievable, now they're a little bit deceptive, maybe not intentionally, but internally, they're in conflict. I want something I don't deserve. I want something that I can't get.
I don't have the skill for, I don't have the persistence for, I don't have the time for, but I do want this idealistic thing to show up, you know.
And that might show up as pathology, as anger towards the employer, because I didn't get what I want, even though I don't deserve it.
Yeah, even though I'm not. So it's almost like there's got to be what I'm willing to work for in the year's time is, my 6-month review, my year review, my, if I do a good job here, here's some things I'd like to see. Awesome.
Correct.
Question 5. We contact thorough background screening. What will we find when we talk to your previous employers in a civil or criminal or similar criminal records? So you're really actually being very much upfront that we're going to do a screening on you. Could you just tell us what we're going to find before we get there?
Right. We ask a candidate, what will we find when we do this? We're not saying if we do it. We're saying we're going to do it. What will we find? Now, one way is to draw them out is they'll say, oh, my records are great. You'll find that I did a good job. My employers will love me. They know I'm here, or, I moved. You'll find out that when I moved, I gave notice. Sometimes it's very good. Sometimes there's overcompensation. Like, one of my last employer promised to promote me, said I would be promotable, promised to give me a raise, never gave me a raise. I've done a great job for them. And they make themselves look really great. They're overcompensating.
Right.
It'd be self-evident. Maybe some of that is true, but probably they left because they wanted something they didn't deserve, or they had some interpersonal issue, or whatever it is. But a lot of times they overcompensate. Like, you know what? I go to church a lot. You'll find this. I'll find that. Oh yeah, there's a couple things in my past I'm not proud of, but I fixed it. That's overcompensation.
Okay.
And sometimes other stories will show up that are not related, which means they're diverting from answering.
Right.
You want to try to be certain to get answers, not general statements like, well, I've been pretty good throughout everything. I'm kind of proud. It's very deceptive. I'm very proud, or I'm not proud, or I'm kind of proud. I'm sort of.
Yeah. And it's the balance between authenticity and truth telling. And a person could come back from a mistake or a problem by going like, hey, this did not work out so well, and I want to let you know about it coming in, because this is what you're going to find on the record. And if they are doing with a little bit of humility, at least you're going to take a look at them again, right?
Right, exactly.
I see. So question 6, what are your hobbies? What do you do in your free time? And why do you like to do this? So this is really, it's crossing over to the personal line, but it is giving some information about what they might be like an employee, right?
Right. For example, there's a sports team where we interviewed some people, and we were hoping that as a hobby, they like to train other people in this sport, and they like to exercise, and they like to work out, and they like to go and observe other teams playing. That's their dominant representation of what they're trying to portray, and their motivation we could identify, because they're going to tell us what they like to do and why. Now, if they say, well, I'm a very diligent administrator, and I love math and I love science, and I go to the museums for hobbies, and I coach children, that's in alignment. But if they say, oh, as a hobby, I watch TV, I do nothing, I stay home, I don't really care. But that's not in alignment with somebody whose passion is something other.
Right.
You want to see if their passion is connected to their profession.
I see.
The quick answer.
That's awesome. So, and there's some extra skills that you can actually identify from the hobbies too, some actually extra benefits.
Right. And you want to see if their eyes light up like they were in the other questions, especially 3 and 4. Are they excited to talk about their hobbies, or are they not?
Right.
They should be excited about their potential work as they are about their free time.
Free time. Question 7. All environments have conflicts and issues. Describe 2 times that you were faced with challenges, and what did you overcame, and how did you handle them? How did you handle these challenges? So what does this question tell us a little bit?
Well, there's different levels of conflict. And so if you hear, well, everywhere I've worked, my bosses always treat me poorly, and I just leave. The way they handle conflict or an issue is they just go away and start over. Odds are that will happen with you.
I see.
And if they say, well, I always have to get the legal department involved because they don't pay me right, that's it. That okay. Or my last employer, or maybe not even employer, or at school, or in my hobby, I found that there's always somebody trying to stop me from something, or and so So, are they talking about recognition, financial issues, interpersonal issues, structural issues? The content of their discussion is as important as how they handle it.
So they could add, the content might be, my need for respect wasn't met, and I withdrew from that. My need for fairness wasn't met. I withdrew from that. My need for acknowledgement, like you said, wasn't met. So there could be all these different things about these different needs that could be coming up that they're not willing to work through or face, that there might be a setup that they're doing, and they, they really need this kind of transition to take place. And so, okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
And then how did they handle the issue? What was the outcome? Oh, I petitioned. I got the group behind me. I wrote letters. I went to the board. I bypassed my boss. What is it that they did to resolve it?
Wow.
My guess is a lot of these issues persist. They're not resolved.
Right.
Individual carries them with them everywhere they go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. I think that could really make a big difference, as overcoming is really a big part. Can they work within a system or not? Okay.
Right.
How about number 8?
Well, this is a great question, and
Right.
sometimes I ask it earlier, or recommend you ask it earlier, but we put it to the end because it sort of ties in everything. 8 and 9 work together.
Sure.
What makes you feel fulfilled and satisfied?
Yes. Yes.
And look at them carefully and see if they're happy.
Right.
Trying to see what their topic is. Are they relating to people, income, promotion, recognition, service, problem solving? Are they trying to overcome something? What makes them? I love to get a raise. Okay, because you deserve it. Yeah, because I deserve it. Because I was underpaid. I love to prove myself. Okay.
Prove myself. Okay.
Yeah. Some of those things are very positive. Some are not.
Awesome. What's the nice about these vetting questions is it gets to a little bit, really gets to the heart of the matter too, instead of just the functional part. I do a lot of job interviews too, but most of my stuff is roles and responsibilities, and does the skill match this? These set of questions is really looking a little bit more deeper, which can be really valuable because we want to be able to just to take a look of what's going on the internal part of their world. So question number 9 is, describe what makes you frustrated, unfulfilled, and how do you feel when this happens? Or what are you going to do about when it happens is really the cleaner way. But yeah, so what are you going to do about this?
Yeah, that's a validation of question 7. We're looking at conflict or issues, and we're asking it in a different way to see if they match. Is there any kind of emergent cognitive thought or representation, or like what is it that exists in their mindset?
Right.
Everyone feels unfulfilled or frustrated at some point.
Sure.
What is that, and how do they do that? That's really a conflict management question, again, in a different way. And it should be opposite of what makes you feel fulfilled. In other words, if someone says, I'm really fulfilled by progress,
awesome,
by promotion, and then why I'm frustrated? Oh, it's because my hours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that it should be the opposite. I'm frustrated when I deserve a promotion, I can't get one. It should be related to the previous question.
Yeah, so many times people get really kind of stuck with their frustrations and escalate them when they don't need to be escalated. So very interesting. Okay, so asking questions about what you've heard and observed sounds like this is a really good landing pad for us after these 9 questions. Right. Does this person's past success and performance match what the company needs? And are we really answering a yes, no, or maybe, with this question? Because sometimes you have to take the maybe. You can't take the yes, because the yes person is overqualified maybe. So tell me about this knowing of resumes being false. Like I can really see now that, what items are you going to verify? What's your tolerance for deception? So what is something that you see that employers really need to embrace about this one?
Well, it's easy for an employer to get a release, to fax it to a previous company. Right. It's going to ask you a few questions. The questions should be, this person claims they worked in this role for you from this time to this time. Is that accurate? Yes or no?
Right.
Which is very peripheral. The person suggested that these were their duties. Is that approximately accurate? Yes or no? But then the big one is, now they claimed that they left for this reason. And I know that for privacy, you can't exactly tell me, but is that reason true? And would you bring that person back even if that reason is true.
Right.
It gives them, they go, well, that's not exactly what they said, and no, we really don't want them back. And hopefully an employer will say, well, they embezzled $50,000. They're under review for indictment right now. They're an accountant with a proliferation of writing bad checks to themselves or false checks. You want to go back and spot check, especially let's say they're in education or childcare or daycare or elder care.
Sure.
You'll want to see how they've handled previous clients and why did they change positions, what happened.
So the cognitive preferences, when you use that phrase, cognitive preferences, how do you define that?
Well, that's actually, Bill, your field.
It is. That's why I might as well throw the softball in your direction.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
we're looking at their mindset. Are they a strategic viewer of the organization, or do they see a bigger picture? Are they very technical and just want to be given work and work? Do they want interpersonal relationships with people and have emotional connection?
That's right.
What is the reason behind all this? Give me a moment there. Lights went on.
And the alignment. The alignment is this an engineering type that is more logical and analytical, and I want to match them with that kind of job, or the CTO that is going to handle that, or is it more of the strategic big picture thinker and I want them in marketing, or is it the interpersonal person that I want in sales, or the operations person that just gets everything done? It's getting in alignment with that cognitive preferences can really make a big difference for an organization.
Right. And you want to ask yourself if the goals, their dominant motivation, their conflict approach, are they good matches for growth and contribution and promotions?
So huge.
You really never want to hire someone that will never go anywhere.
Yeah.
So a good employer, or a good, even if someone's renting property, what are the long-term likelihood for meeting the organization's goals, or the employer's goals, or the landlord's goals? Will they be met with this person or this family or these individuals?
So for me, one of my questions is that I recommend is this person at my skill level, so that I'm not coaching them or having to work, I can delegate to them. I need them to have the skill that is necessary or needed. And that's one of the thing is I've got to have the person that has that motivation as well as that skill set that's something I'm going to delegate to.
Right. And you want to look at the variance between their dominant motivation and representation. This is where a lot of deception can be, or they're lying to themselves. Maybe, you're not going to blame them for that, but
they're boosting their self-worth is another way to say lying to yourself. They're boosting their self-worth.
Right. And they're saying one thing and they actually do another.
Right.
And so you want to look for that and see if that's of relevance or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. It's time for verification. I guess we better do some stuff, right? Conduct a comprehensive misconduct search. We want to call the former employees, even if not listed. We want to spot check the credentials and resumes. We want to provide this cognitive preference survey and compare them with established profiles. We want to do that. And then follow up with an interview, have somebody else interview, take notes for those variances.
Sometimes one interviewer will get one story that's a heart-throbbing story. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then the other interviewer gets a completely different story about the same event. So probably neither story is true.
Right.
Sometimes comparing notes between the two is very valuable.
That is valuable. I can see it right away. It's so cool. How about this, asking the candidate if they're flexible? I really like this one too, is like, listen, from time to time, we may need to work over the weekend. Are you available for that? Now, even though you might not have any work on the weekend, you actually are trying to test in their willingness to do whatever it takes.
Right. And we had one individual that was going to be hired for a key position, that said, you know, do not call me on weekends or after 5 o'clock. I'm only committed to help you all I can during these hours. And after that, I'm not going to be of any help, and do not bother me. And the role required constant access to people and information.
Sure.
A salaried role is whenever the company needs them to do something, and that would discriminate that person from that role.
Sure.
They're not going to and are unwilling to do extra things, which
That's right.
commitment level was to them. It was not to the organization.
Right. It's a little too low. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess, it's up to people to contact you now, for more information about ways that you can get support to get greater protection. This is the thing that you're up to, is to invite people to check out your website.
Right. And, or give us a call. There may be this is very complex, so there may be some issues that we didn't discuss or nuances we didn't really review, but we're happy to help anyone that we can that deserves it and wants it. We don't want to, get into, we could go on this interview for another hour.
Easily.
Don't want to get into the details of every little thing. Just give our audience a great idea of where to start.
Yeah. So I really appreciate, Jonathan, your time to share this with everybody. We know that information is power, and good decisions start with great information. And thanks again for, your time and contributing to all the people that are listening to this piece of work. And we're looking forward to hear from you next time.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
All right. You're welcome. All right. Bye-bye.